No one ever said, "You're allowed to shine now." No one gave me a stamp of approval or a nod of permission. I was waiting, silently, hoping someone would. Until one day, I stopped waiting. I stood up, looked in the mirror, and said it myself. "You're enough." But it wasn't a pretty moment. It didn't come with applause or clarity. It came with shaking hands, a tight chest, and the terrifying choice to be seen. What happened the day I stopped asking and finally chose confidence? Stay with me, because it might be your day too. If this already resonates with you, like and subscribe. Let's walk through this together. I used to walk through the halls of my college campus like I was trying not to exist. Headphones in, eyes down, shoulders curled. If confidence had a volume knob, mine was turned all the way down, maybe even unplugged. I thought it was because I hadn't earned it yet. That once I got the internship, the boyfriend, the body, the approval, then I could stand tall. But every time one of those things came, I still felt small. I remember getting a congratulatory email from my professor once. He called my work impressive. I reread that email 20 times in disbelief and still felt like a fraud. I kept thinking, when will I feel like the person everyone else thinks I am? It didn't hit me until much later that I had built my entire sense of self around other people's permission slips. I was waiting for someone else to grant me access to a life I already had the keys to. One afternoon, I was sitting alone at a café in downtown Portland, scrolling through my phone, drowning in comparisons. And I overheard a little girl at the next table asking her mom, "Can I dance here?" The mom laughed and said, "Sweetheart, you don't need permission to be happy." Something about that cracked me open. I looked around and realized how much of my life I'd spent waiting. Waiting for compliments, waiting for signs, waiting for someone to say, "You're allowed." But confidence doesn't come through permission. It comes through presence, through deciding, "I'm here, I'm enough, and I belong." That moment wasn't loud or cinematic. It was quiet and certain. I stood up, walked out, and for the first time, didn't shrink as I passed a group of strangers on the sidewalk. I didn't apologize with my posture. I just took up space. Not because someone said I could, but because I finally believed I should. That shift changed everything. So today, we're going to unpack the kind of confidence that doesn't need a spotlight to feel real. We'll walk through the hidden ways we give up our power, physically, socially, and internally, and how to reclaim it without shouting or performing. You'll learn how to stop waiting for permission and start trusting your own presence. We'll talk about physical confidence, social boldness, and authentic inner self-trust. Stay with me. This might just be the mindset shift you've been needing. Okay, but seriously, when was the last time you did something just because it felt right for you? Not because it was expected or approved. Like, didn't post it? Didn't wait for a "you go girl," just lived it? That kind of freedom? That's the vibe we're chasing today. So take a deep breath, get comfy, and maybe even grab your favorite drink, because this is going to feel less like a lecture and more like a conversation with a friend who sees your potential. We need to talk about what confidence is not. Confidence isn't walking into a room and needing everyone to look. It's walking into a room and not needing anyone to look. It's not arrogance, and it's not pretending. It's not the loudest voice or the boldest outfit. Real confidence is soft power. It's the ability to take up space in your own life without apologizing for it. We've been taught that to be confident, we have to earn it, through praise, approval, or perfect performance. But confidence isn't a prize someone else gives you. It's a quiet knowing that who you are right now is already enough. And once you understand that, everything shifts. You don't have to build confidence. You have to uncover it, because the truth is, it's already in you. It's just been buried under years of conditioning, comparison, and the exhausting need to be liked. It started with mirrors. Not just the ones in my apartment in Charlotte, but the ones I carried in my head. Mirrors shaped by other people's opinions, by social media filters, by casual comments I should have brushed off, but didn't. Every time I scrolled through Instagram, it was like stepping into a hall of warped reflections. Girls with glass skin, perfect gym bodies, flawless hair that somehow stayed curled through an entire day. Meanwhile, I'd wake up bloated, with dark circles and a breakout on my chin, wondering how everyone else looked like a photo shoot, and I looked like someone late for life. And I hated that those thoughts had so much power over me. But they did. I remember one night getting ready for dinner with friends. I had tried on 6 different outfits. Every one of them looked fine, but none made me feel beautiful. I stared at my reflection, tugged at my shirt, turned sideways, crossed my arms. I whispered to myself, "Just suck it up and smile tonight." And I did. I showed up, laughed, made conversation, but I felt like a version of me was missing the whole time. The version that didn't need to hide behind perfection to feel worthy of being seen. Physical confidence isn't about reaching some beauty standard. It's about no longer asking your reflection for permission to feel good. And that shift started happening when I stopped treating my body like a project and started treating it like a home. I began to notice the way my legs carried me through long walks in the park, how my hands comforted friends, how my eyes sparkled when I was genuinely excited. I stopped trying to shrink into clothes that were flattering and started wearing what felt like me. Some days that meant oversized sweatshirts and messy buns. Other days it meant red lipstick and bold prints. But both felt honest. The more I listened to my body instead of judging it, the more I trusted it. I started moving it not to punish it, but to thank it. I danced in my living room alone. I took yoga classes without staring at the mirror the whole time. I stopped waiting to hit a goal weight before buying clothes I liked. And slowly, something wild started happening. I felt beautiful, not because anything had changed on me, but because everything had changed within me. One of the most radical things you can do for your confidence is to unfollow people who make you feel less than, and surround yourself, online and offline, with women who look like you, who sound like you, who aren't chasing perfection but celebrating progress. And when the comparison sneaks in again, because it always does, I remind myself, her beauty doesn't cancel out mine. We were never meant to be identical. We were meant to be true. It's still a practice. Some mornings I wake up and feel like my skin betrays me. My jeans are too tight, or my hair just won't cooperate. But now, those moments don't spiral into self-loathing. I catch the thought, breathe through it, and remind myself that I'm more than an image. My confidence lives in how I show up, not in how I look showing up. So if you're standing in front of the mirror today, not loving what you see, I want to ask you something. What if you didn't change a thing, but decided, just for today, to believe you're already enough? Before we keep going, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this has resonated with your story so far? Drop it in the comments below. I used to think social confidence meant walking into a room and instantly being the center of attention. Like, if you weren't the one telling jokes or dazzling everyone, then maybe you just weren't confident enough. But what no one tells you is that for so many of us, being in a room full of people feels like being underwater. Everyone else is breathing freely, and you're the only one holding your breath. Middle school was the first place I remember shrinking socially. I had just moved from a small town in Vermont to a huge public school in Atlanta, and suddenly I didn't know how to talk to anyone. I'd scan the lunchroom, my tray shaking in my hands, pretending I was fine when every muscle in my body was begging me to disappear. I learned how to nod and smile. I learned how to laugh at jokes I didn't understand. I learned how to play the background, because being quiet felt safer than risking rejection. And in a way, I wore that silence like armor. But there's a cost to silence. Over time, it doesn't just protect you from rejection. It starts to protect you from being known. And not being known? That's the loneliest thing in the world. Social confidence isn't about being extroverted. It's about feeling safe enough to show up as yourself, even when your voice shakes. And maybe especially when your voice shakes. There was this one moment in college that cracked something open for me. It was during a group project, and I was so afraid of sounding stupid that I kept my mouth shut for the entire first meeting. Afterward, a girl named Jordan pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you had this look like you were holding back something smart. You don't have to shrink here." And something in me softened. I realized I was waiting for permission again, this time to speak. I slowly started testing my voice in little ways, not trying to impress, just being honest, asking questions I was actually curious about, sharing an idea without overthinking it. And it felt clumsy at first, but every time I spoke up and the world didn't fall apart, I started to build this quiet kind of strength. What helped the most wasn't some big dramatic transformation. It was learning how to anchor myself. Before walking into a room, I'd literally whisper to myself, "I'm allowed to be here." Sometimes I still do. And not just in rooms with people. I say it before I post online, before I raise my hand, before I say something that might not land. Because confidence, in its most generous form, is just permission. It's saying, "You're allowed. You're enough. Right now." And no one can give that to you permanently, even if they try. You have to keep giving it to yourself. That's the part people forget. I think of confidence like a muscle you build through exposure. The more you gently stretch it, like sharing your opinion, initiating a conversation, asking for what you need, the more it remembers how to hold you. It's not about being unafraid. It's about being afraid and still choosing presence. If you've ever sat at a table and felt like everyone else had a script you missed, let me tell you, they don't. Most people are just hoping they're not the only ones fumbling. When you show up as yourself, even a little bit, it creates space for others to exhale. You become a mirror that says, "You can relax too." The real shift happened when I stopped obsessing over how I was perceived and started focusing on how I made people feel. I stopped trying to be impressive and started being curious. And weirdly, people started gravitating toward that. Because presence is magnetic. Authenticity is magnetic. You don't need to dazzle anyone, you just need to be with them. And if you're in a season where that feels far away, where social spaces still make your heart race and your palms sweat, please know that's not a sign you're broken. It's a sign you're stretching. That's what growth feels like sometimes. Shaky, awkward, brave. You're allowed to take up space in conversations, even if your voice cracks. You're allowed to ask questions, to offer ideas, to make mistakes mid-sentence. You're allowed to learn out loud. Confidence isn't a volume knob. It's a rootedness. And the deeper you anchor in your own presence, the less you need to perform. Because you're not here to impress. You're here to connect. Let that be enough. For the longest time, I thought confidence came from finally getting things right. Having the perfect body, the perfect job, the perfect morning routine. I kept thinking, once I fix all the broken pieces, then I'll feel whole. But the more I chased perfection, the further I felt from myself. Because here's the secret no one talks about. Confidence doesn't grow in performance. It grows in permission. Permission to be flawed, to be human, to be in process. I remember journaling one night in my apartment in Portland. I had just gotten home from this networking event where I spent the entire evening smiling too wide and pretending to understand conversations that made me feel small. I came home, closed the door, and cried, not because anyone had said anything cruel, but because I couldn't find myself in that room. I had shown up as the polished version of me, and still, it didn't feel like enough. Or maybe it felt like too much pretending, and I just sat there thinking, who am I doing all this for? That was the night I started a different kind of work. Not the kind that involves planners and post-its and goal charts, but the kind that asks harder questions, like, what do I value? What makes me proud when no one's watching? What parts of myself have I been abandoning just to be liked? Authentic confidence isn't loud. It's not always seen. It's felt. It's the quiet steadiness that builds when you tell the truth. When you stop making promises to the world and start making ones to yourself. And actually keeping them. I started keeping small promises, like turning off my phone before bed or writing morning pages without editing myself. Not because I needed another habit to master, but because I needed to learn that I could trust myself. And every time I followed through, even on something tiny, I felt a little stronger inside. And then came the shadow work. The part that's messy and hard and deeply beautiful. It's the part where you stop blaming everyone else for how you feel and start asking what parts of your story you haven't forgiven. I had to face a lot of shame I was still carrying. The shame of not speaking up. The shame of past relationships where I abandoned my needs. The shame of playing small in rooms I longed to shine in. And the more I sat with those parts, not to fix them, but to hear them, the more I softened. Because confidence doesn't come from fixing your past. It comes from no longer running from it. There's this idea I hold close now. If I want others to believe in me, I have to believe in me first. Even when I'm doubting, even when I'm growing. And that belief isn't a declaration. It's a quiet commitment. A whispered, "I've got you" to yourself when things feel shaky. I stopped chasing the version of me that had it all figured out. And I started showing up as the version who was honest, curious, and still trying. That's who I trust now. Not the polished me. The consistent me. The one who gets back up. The one who says, "I'm sorry" when I mess up. The one who celebrates when something goes well and lets herself feel the joy without minimizing it. Confidence isn't a switch. It's a relationship with yourself. And like any relationship, it needs attention, forgiveness, and love. When you break a promise to yourself, when you skip the thing you said you'd do, or let your fear make the decision again, it doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you have another chance to recommit, to choose yourself again. That's what builds trust, not perfection, repetition. And here's the truth. The more you know yourself, the less convincing you have to do. The more grounded you are in what matters to you, the less you need external validation. Because your worth stops swinging with someone else's opinion. It roots down into something solid. Your values, your integrity, your intention. If I could leave you with anything, it's this. You don't have to become someone else to be confident. You just have to come home to yourself. Again and again. And that home? It's made of your honesty, your softness, your self-respect. It's not built in front of an audience. It's built in quiet mornings, in hard conversations, in boundaries that feel uncomfortable but right. Real confidence doesn't ask for applause. It asks for alignment. And when you feel that alignment, even for a moment, you'll understand. This is what safe feels like. This is what real feels like. This is what enough feels like. So here we are, full circle. We started with a story about shrinking to fit, and now we stand in the quiet, steady truth that we never had to shrink at all. Confidence isn't a costume you wear on the outside. It's a home you build on the inside. It's not measured by how many people clap when you speak, but by how deeply you hear your own voice when the room is silent. We talked about the traps of physical confidence, the way filters, comparison, and perfectionism make us feel like we're never enough. We explored how social confidence isn't about being liked by everyone, but about feeling safe with who you are in any room. And we saw how authentic confidence, the kind that lasts, is built on promises kept, shadows faced, and a return to our deepest truths. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. And every small act of courage you take, every time you speak up, show up, or soften instead of shrink, is a brick in the foundation of your unshakable self-worth. You were never meant to be small. You were meant to take up space, not with noise, but with presence. Not with performance, but with peace. And if no one has told you lately, you're allowed to be seen. You're allowed to be proud. You're allowed to trust yourself, even before you feel fully ready. This isn't the end of your story. It's the part where you finally start writing it in your own voice. What if the version of you you're trying to become is actually the version you forgot to protect? What if confidence isn't about building something new, but about remembering who you were before the world told you to doubt it? Would you be brave enough to go back and reclaim her? If this touched your heart, like the video and subscribe so we can grow through this together.